My name is Sammy Trujillo, and I will talk about the latest version of Beas, what we have, and also give you a sneak peek of the next version that's coming next month. So it's called Why Upgrade to the latest version of Beas Manufacturing. So I will state a little bit the obvious. It's always good to be up to date, obviously, okay? And it allows you to give better support. Normally, when you have a support ticket, the first thing it's asked, are you using the latest version? So it's always good that you have it. It's not a big deal to upgrade, so it can be done. And it allows you to provide much better support. Each version comes with more technological advantages. Okay, we take, every time we release a new version, not only do we put new features, but we also try to keep ourselves as close together as with the upcoming technology, as I will show you in a little while. And obviously, the biggest thing are the new features, some of which might be interesting for your customers, some of maybe not, but still give you a step forward into processes that you might want or might be interested in implementing. So I am going to talk about the version 9.3 PL02. That's what we currently have. This is the latest release version. It's been out for a few months already. And for those of you who have not been able to upgrade or see, I will show you what this version brought on top of the existing capabilities of the system. Okay, so first of all, we integrated with SAP Business One in a more intimate way. We now support fully SAP bin locations whenever you're doing any transactions. From MRP, we're now able to create SAP purchase requests rather than the internal purchase requests that were available until now. And also, if you have B1 Up, the dashboard that comes with B1 Up will bring you specific information regarding Beas, and I will also show you that. One of the biggest leaps forward that we've done is change the web terminals. I don't know if you ever seen the previous web terminal. I'm talking about the web terminal that we had in Beas. It was a bit of outdated technology, and it looked, not that very sexy. But now we use HTML5 and the latest technology available, which makes the system more stable, which makes the screens look nicer, and I will show you. And also, one of the biggest thing is that HTML5, if you're working on a phone, you're working on a tablet, or you're working on a PC, it knows how to adapt itself to the size so that the screens look very, very nice, very normal. They don't go to the sides, they don't overflow, okay? But because this is everything we're doing here is new, we haven't done all the options yet. We've only done the basic stop movements like goods received, goods issued, stock transfer between warehouses, okay? We did the receipt from work order, an issue work order, a couple of attendance ones, clock in, clock out of the company, and also clock in, clock out to work orders, okay? And to do all this, we have a new web server, which doesn't require, as we did before, the Tomcat or anything else. So now it works more smoothly also in the local computers. And additional new features that we have is the available to promise. Up until now, we only had a capable to promise option in the sales order, which required you to have APS license in order to run it. Now you don't have to have an APS license. You will run an available to promise. It will obviously not consider the capacity in the resources, but only the material, but still will give you a better picture than before, okay? There are some changes to the BOM in the work order. Allocations, automatic allocations and reservations on the first operation, I will show you that. And also work with multi-level variants, short variants. And I will go through all of these points a little more in detail. Okay. Some feature improvements that we did, the Beas views. Right now, when you went into SQL, you would have all these Beas tables with the field names in German. Now we've created some views that gather those tables and provide you with SQL views with titles in English, which will make it easier to create queries. In addition, when you do a transfer from QC, we can use a transfer price, the batch tracer, I will show you that. We have a version control at blanket agreement, multiple changes to the product configurator, making it easier to maintain and also more stable to use. Less complex queries running in the background. IPS planning with fixed overlaps. We didn't used to have that. Some new icons in APS. And basically, as I mentioned before, taking into consideration the new technology like in HANA and stuff like that, we're able to do better memory usage of screens and queries run so that the system runs much smoothly and faster. Okay, so let's dive in. So from now onwards, we're able to use the bin locations in SAP Business One. We no longer have to maintain bin locations in Beas. Okay, and those bin locations are obviously available throughout the system when we're issuing for the work orders, when we're doing any stock transactions from the terminal, everywhere as if there were. So now we can actually have warehouses that we can issue into the work orders directly from using bin locations, the sub bin locations. Having said that, we're also expanding this, and I will show you in the sneak peek, to include the bin locations in Produmex WMS, which is one of the first steps in integrating both of the systems. Again, the purchase request from SAP. Now, purchase requests are also appearing in MRP as part of the supply that we have. Up until now, it was only purchase orders and quotations. So now we only also have purchase requests. But not only that, when you decide to release purchasing from SAP, from the MRP, now instead of creating the internal request that we had in Beas, you can use the SAP Business One standard purchase request that can be picked up by the purchase department in the regular way that you are used to do it. And this is done by a parameter, a setting here in the configuration wizard. As I mentioned before, when you install the usability package within the system, then you have access to these fantastic dashboards that come already made. Now, when you have Beas also installed, these dashboards also take into consideration Beas information or information that comes from Beas, like for example, item data, inventory data that also includes all the Beas transactions. This is a list of the open work orders showing you which dates are late, so they appear in red, and how much have you gone through the work order. These I haven't started and these are already moving forward. And you have some clocks here indicating on your own time or productivity. More complex dashboards showing you the resources, standard versus actual, planned times against actual times, downtimes of machines and stuff like that. So, and obviously you can create your own dashboards, but already the system comes with a set of 4 predefined dashboards that look at Beas information directly. And now let's go to the web apps. As you can see, this is already one of the screens in the new Beas web apps. As you can see, it's much more intuitive, easier to read, nicer to look at. Okay, there's a lot more information that fits. And as I mentioned before, it adapts itself to the size of the device that you are using. So even that you get all this information here, it still can be seen very normally in a phone or or a small tablet. Okay, this is what the menu looks like at this stage. And as I mentioned before, we don't have all the functionality yet that we had in the previous web apps or that we have in the regular Windows terminal, but we're getting there. Right now, what we have is item information. If you have a query about an item, how much stock do you have and where do you have it? We can do a goods received from PO, goods issue, stock transfer, incoming goods, inventory counting. Those are ready. From a work order, we can do a work order receipt, goods issue, a time receipt, and clock in, clock out a work order. What we do in the terminal, it can be done again using a phone right now or any device that, well, by the way, we only need a browser, obviously, for this. So no installation is required. And for attendance, login, log off, I mean, coming to the company, leaving the company, the basic attendance information. This is what we currently have released, tested, and working. Okay, we can do some stock movements, and here are some examples of the screens that come. You have a lot of information regarding the badge and the item, and you can do a goods receipt from a purchase order. And as you can see, the screens are much more intuitive and easier to use. The works orders, you get a list of work orders here. You get a list of items to issue. You have all the required. When you clock in, it will ask you which resource you logged in, you're clocking into. The standard one you can select from a list. When you stop the work order, when you finish the clock out, it will show you what you clocked in. So you can actually clock out here, reading the barcode also, obviously. That goes without saying. Okay, when you do attendance, coming to the company, leaving the company, you can use your phone in the morning to do so. Okay, this is a bit technical how this works. Okay, we have something new called a Beas service layer, which is similar to the service layer in SAP, but allows us to connect from Beas to the outside world, and that includes the web. I just left it here just to give you an idea, but we don't need any additional installations like Tomcat or Apache as we did with Zora, and it's much, much easier to use. All you have to do is within SAP, just turn on the web server and you're done. You nothing to install. If you remember correctly, in the past, we used to need to install all of these additional programs just to have the server running. Right now, it's all included. There is absolutely no problem to do so. Okay. As I mentioned before, we had the capable to promise. When you have the APS installed, so from a sales order, the system can come back and tell you what is the next possible date, taking into consideration both the material availability and the capacity that you currently have in your resources. If you do not have a APS installed, you can run not a capable to promise, but rather an available to promise, which will show you basically if you have enough material. And if you don't, it will take into consideration the lead time when it should arrive. If you have any POs, it will also consider and give you the first date in which this item can be ready and give you the date according to what can be done. So from the customer service, we'll have the ability to have access to this information. When you're doing bombs and routings within the items, now almost all of the fields that we have for both the items, for both the bill of materials and the routings, you're able to bring them to the first screen, in this case, to the line, and they're all mostly, they are changeable, okay? Up until now, only a few data bits, you could change the quantity, you could change the routing position, and a few more. Right now, almost everything is changeable here. So whether you're creating a bill of materials and a routing, you can bring the information that you deem necessary here to the first screen, and you no longer have to go inside and start adding information. You can add it directly in the table screen. Okay. Call allocation or reservation automatically. This is really cool if you ask me. Up until now, you could say that on the first operation that you report, you would like the material to be issued. But if you are managing a production warehouse, okay, what you would like to do is transfer stock from the storage warehouse to the production warehouse, sorry, and then start working. Because if you have a production warehouse, mostly the WIP that you have should be whatever you have in the production warehouse. So you would want to issue at the end of the production, and only then will the WIP disappear and you will get the finished goods. So what we've done here is that when you do the first operation, you can do either an allocation. An allocation in Beas means that you are transferring stock from a storage warehouse to the production warehouse, or a reservation, meaning that if you're working on the same warehouse, on the first operation that you report, the stock that would be used for that operation is reserved, so nobody else can take it. And this is an automatic feature, and in my opinion, it's very cool. Another thing is the short variance with default value. Up until now, and we're talking about the short variance, the variant A, variant B, variant C. Up until now, what we had is each item can have multiple variants. But when you created a work order for a top level item, then the system would and it had a variant, let's say A, the system automatically would pick the variant A for the lower level sub-assemblies. There was no way to indicate that you wanted something else. So we've changed the logic here, okay? And in this case, if I pick the variant A of the top item, it will not do anything for the second item because it doesn't have a variant A. But if I pick variant B, it will go to the variant B of the subassembly, okay? So now we can actually indicate how we would like the bill of materials to explode in work orders based on these variants. I don't know how many of you have ever used it in the past. This is very useful for whoever really needs it, okay? So you can see here you have a variant B, and it's the same variant that will be used here, okay? In batch tracing, in the batch tracing screen, when you do a transfer between bins, up until now they were not appearing here because, well, basically they don't affect much, but it is important as long as you don't move them between warehouses. This is moving the item between two different bins in the same warehouse. This is now available here when you're doing the batch tracing, and it's easier, and it actually tells the whole picture of the actual transactions here. We've done a lot of changes. This is one of the more complex screens in Beas, the batch tracing. It does a lot of things. You can go from the top down and from the bottom up and see where used and stuff like that. So I won't go through this very long list. I'll just let you know we've done a lot of changes here just to make it work quicker, easier, to be able to have more information available without being too convoluted, okay? And because this screen, you can actually move and keep on moving all the time, you know, drill down, drill down, drill down. It makes it much faster. It is much faster to do right now, and it runs much smoother, okay? These are the Beas views I was talking about. So in SQL, we have all of these new views, okay, that will show you that the items, the fields with names in English, okay, which will make it much easier for you guys to write queries instead of trying to decipher the tables and the German names, okay. So you can look at them. They are called Beas V underscore something, okay. So sorry. So you have them all in SQL. And we will continue to add more as we go forward. We've done most of the tables like that already, but we'll get doing more as we go forward. Transfer price. When you transfer, when you receive a stock from purchasing, then that stock goes into quality control, into quarantine until it goes through quality control. Now, let's say, for example, that you received it at 10 euros, okay? But after the quality control, you added an additional euro of labor, and before you release it to the storage warehouse, you would like to have that cost accrued or added to the cost of the product, okay? A little bit like a landed cost, if you may, okay? So now we have up until now, we had nothing that we could do. The only thing we could do is just transfer, and the system would transfer the item from quarantine to storage using the same cost as the receiving cost. So now we can change that, and we have the ability to have an additional cost or added to the item at the time we do a stock transfer from quality for quarantine into storage. Okay. Version control and blanket agreement. So this is a SAP Business One blanket agreement. And we obviously have the version control field that we didn't used to have before. And again, it's really important because if you have a blanket agreement that then becomes a quotation and then becomes a sales order, and you would like to have the version available when you release the order, the work order. Now this is a little more complex, okay? And I don't know if you're aware of that, but when you create a routing in Beas, there is something called an overlap limit. The overlap limit tells me how much time can go by before I can start the next operation. Normally, I mean, obviously, if you're in a chemical industry, that doesn't make any sense. You mix something, you have to wait for the whole mix to be ready before you can go to the next step. But when you're talking about discrete manufacturing, and if you're making, I don't know, small parts of something, you can do the first, the second, the third, and those that have undergone the first operation can actually go to the next operation already. You don't have to wait for the whole batch to be ready, okay? So that's when we have this overlap limit here, indicating in hours, how much time do I give before I can start the next operation? Now, this makes a lot of sense on one hand, but APS didn't used to see this. Now, we've made a change in APS, and you can see that it waits an hour before it can start the next operation. It doesn't have to wait for the full operation to be ready, okay? I won't go much into this also. There have been a lot of improvements in the configurator, okay? Most of it is behind the scenes, not everything, but not only. It's been done, it's much easier to manage. We can now have the system or have the configurator calculate the price and also push it to the sales order or the quotation. We can push the description to the quotation, okay? Here you go, you want to put the price in the price column, okay? The description, we can have a brief description, a long description that are calculated automatically. Imagine the item is called car, but when you do the configuration, it's a red car with 4 doors and 1,600 horsepower and I don't know, something else, and you would like all that information to be added to the description of the item rather than looking at the configuration itself. So the system actually does that now, and it also adds this information in the document, in the quotation or the sales order. Okay, we have the option to do, when we do a configuration, I can do a partial and say it's a partial. When I haven't finished, I have status, like a complete or it's a draft. So it gives you an idea of what situation I am in. Right now, when you do a configuration, then you do it, and wherever you did, that's fine, okay? But this way, we can actually indicate if we've finished, if we're done doing it, if it was just partial, and avoid creating work orders where it's not necessary. We can add some UDF fields here that were not available before, and those UDF fields can also be transferred to the sales order and from them to the work order that's created. Okay, there are some new buttons here or some rearranged buttons. Okay, and one of the nicer options here is that we have the save as. So imagine you have a configurator. Okay, the customer ordered something, you order, and then he calls and says, listen, okay, remember what I told you? I needed whatever, color red, I would like it to be blue. Okay, again, up until now, you would go in, change it to blue, and that was it. But now you can actually save it as a new configuration, attach it to the system, and there is a link between the previous and the current configuration. So you can always know what the previous configuration looked like. If ever there is a problem, if ever there's a discrepancy, that information is now readily available, and that's by using the save button, the save as button. Okay, there's a lot of improvement regarding the prices. We can actually bring special prices into the configuration, especially when the selling price is managed by selecting different options, and each option brings a price with them. So now there is a much more robust way of bringing this information into the system by using special prices, also depending on the quantity, depending on special discounts. Multi-currency, I mean, you can indicate you have your system is in euro, you can quote in dollars, and so on, using the configurator again. Okay, so this is what basically we've done, and now I would like to give you a sneak peek into the next version, which will be released in December. Okay, it's actually should be November, but I'm saying December just to be on the safe side. So what we have, first of all, is we're talking about integration between Beas and Protobix WMS. Okay, so now we will start supporting WMS warehouses. Goods received from production will be generating an SSC and batch extended information in a WMS warehouse, which is excellent. Okay, and everything and the issues we will be able to pick also from a WMS warehouse into Beas work orders. The changes that I'm talking about here are the changes made on Beas. On the WMS side, they've also made changes so that the terminals can talk or can talk to the Beas work orders. In the new web apps terminal, we now will be able to, we'll have the backflush here. The interruption is when the downtime of machines, okay, to stop and start and stop a resource. Doing the picking list based on the SAP picking list. This is the standard picking list as it works in SAP, but it's just on that terminal level. Pick and pack based on reservations of sales orders, okay. The delivery will be able to create a delivery from reservation. Reservation means, and just to be clear here, the only way we can create a delivery in Beas is if you have material allocated to a specific sales order after the end of production. So that is the material. So you would have to have the quantity, the batch number, whatever it is already allocated, and only then we'll be able to create a delivery. And it will allow us to create a delivery from using the handheld. And also a stock transfer request or managing stock transfer request from the handhelds. Okay, a new screen for item version stock information. I will show it to you. We will have another, before we release this version, we'll have another webinar showing the actual screens and everything. The Beas service layer, which I mentioned before, which is the connection between Beas and the outside world in a much more integrated and using the latest technology, so it makes it easier, faster, more reliable. And a new work order list. We'll show you that. Feature improvements. Okay, so these are existing improvements, so we're going to do additional work on them. Okay, So the version will be validated against batch and serial item numbers. The server administration will be made easier. I'm talking about the Beas server. Still making the Beas script more intuitive and easier to use. A quality control transfer. The pull list, there's going to be a change in the way that the pull list is being displayed, okay? And the NAPS, it's called bug fixing, but basically it's a set of improvements in the system. And the biggest ones we're doing right now is optimizing the memory usage so that the system will work a lot faster, okay? And also Beas running on terminal servers so that that the system is really goes a lot faster, because normally terminal servers are connected to wireless, and we're trying to make it, you know, as quickly as smooth as possible. If you have any ideas, if you have anything you would like to add, we have a community. The people from product management do look at what's in here, okay? So if you go into boyum-solutions.com/community, there is a community for new features that you would like to have. We cannot promise we will do it, but I can promise that it's going to be looked, and if enough people are asking for it, like a couple of things that I mentioned before, they will be part of the system in the upcoming versions. Thank you, and I will open the microphone if you have any questions.